Welcome back, all. We'll continue with our series here today, and happy weekend to everybody. Hope you've had a good week. Topic I want to take on today is an interesting one. This is actually something that I had on the slate for the earlier part of the end of last year, right about the time I went missing because I wound up in the hospital. And you're going to find that hard to believe based on the topic, but I decided not to talk about it for a few weeks after that as things took up, but I thought it might be too connected at that point. Many years ago, I read a book, and I've been reaching for it here, and I cannot think of who it was that wrote it or the name of the book. I just remember coming across this piece where the guy was talking about going into an emergency room, and I think he was there as a visitor, but maybe not. But walking into an emergency room and seeing on the wall behind the nurse's triage check-in station the words, "The pain stops here," written on the wall. And he thought that was so compelling and interesting that he included it in a book and in talking about how some of that might work. And it really meant something to me. He was making some relations to churches with that. The pain stops here as a concept from an emergency room is an interesting one. I didn't talk about this in November as I had wound up in the emergency room with a lot of pain in my system, and the pain didn't stop right then. Actually, in some areas the pain got worse, and sometimes it does. I remember being I'll say a kid now. I was working for a living and was riding on the back of a machine, and the owner of the company was driving the machine. I was counterbalancing it for a load that was on the front, a skid loader, and I was holding onto the booms on the arms, and he was going over some bumpy terrain, and he lifted the bucket up a little bit, and the arm went up and caught my finger between the arm of the machine and the cage. And I was pounding on the cage where he was yelling at him, and he thought something somehow caught somebody's foot or something, so he lifted the thing up more, and when he did, it broke my finger. Tore all the skin off the inside and broke my finger there, and I had to go into the emergency room. And when I got there, I thought, well, this needs to get fixed and put back together, and eventually it did. But first, they gave me some shots in the palm of my hand and stuck some. I had good working hands. Remember they stuck a needle through the callus up into the finger there for, I don't know, shock or this or that or whatever, but it all hurt really bad when they did it. And I was a big baby about the whole thing. In fact, to more recent days, whenever I'd wind up in the emergency room, I'd frisk everybody when they came in to see if they had any needles in their pockets. Pain continued, but the principle behind it was there. Once you get here, whatever is causing you grief is going to begin to stop now. And I think when I go back through that, I really like the way that is. In fact, this last time in, I think I identified probably much better with that because I had no idea what was going on with me inside. I just knew that I was in trouble, and I thought all kinds of different terrible things about what it might be. But they got to work and started isolating and working through things, and once we had it all figured out, then they could give me something to help me feel a little bit better while waiting to get things more permanently taken care of. But this idea, anyway, that the pain stops here is an interesting one to me because I often think about Christianity, the relationship with Christ. Let me put it that way, because as you know, I bristle a little bit with the concept of Christianity because I think we've done such a bad job as Christians of sharing Christ with the world around us. But the idea that with Christ, the pain stops here is such a good one when we think about the position that the world is in right now. I mean, there's so much chaos going on, and so much of it feeds into the inside of our minds. People develop depression when they can't see the end from the beginning. People are at war with each other over concepts, and instead of working them out, everybody separates and gets angry. Where is the tie that binds or the uniter in all of this? I've often said, you've heard me many times, it doesn't matter what the stripe is or color or brand or whatever. I've said that we simply cannot find the right answers to this in secular society. It's got to be something deeper, something more meaningful, something that touches the heart and changes us internally. When I think about Christ, you know, his walk on earth here was one in which I just can't imagine the idea that he was God and he came to earth, and when he saw people in pain, he had pity and he couldn't but help himself in helping them. We've talked a little bit about the miracles and how some just took them. I don't think we've ever covered the concept that as he came through towns, people would flock to him. There's some mention in commentary that he would walk through towns and everybody would be healed. But I think of a story, and I had so much to talk about on this that I'm just going to do some story references for you. I think of a story where he stands on a hill looking at Jerusalem, and it says that he just had pity on these people. He saw their plight and their condition, and he took pity on them. I don't know if you've ever considered the idea of pity, but pity is just a concept of thinking about where someone's at, having empathy enough to connect yourself to it, and just feeling like if there's anything I could do to help your situation, I would do it. Today's television is very good at bending our hearts on pity. If you've ever seen the commercials with the pets standing in the cage in the winter, shivering and different things like that. My producer here, when she was little, always left the room when those commercials came on. She just couldn't watch those animals.
I still do.
She still does leave the room. All right, good. So anyway, he looks at humanity and he has pity, and he would do anything that he could in his power to help that. As Christians, we need to get on that path. And I want to think about who Christ is. I have to say, in Exodus, as they're departing, there are 3 separate verses that just drive this home to me from God. One is the very simplistic, I think this is Exodus 14:14, where it says, as you go out, all you have to do is be still, and I will do the work for you. It says fighting, but that's in God's way. He'll take care of things for you. They never allowed him to do that, to show his way. They were so eager to go do it their way, which causes such damage. As you step on from that into the next chapters, he says, remember that I am God, the one who heals you, in chapter 15. What a beautiful sentiment that is when you think about all the baggage that's been piled on God. What if we were presenting God to the world as the one who heals you? And by the way, God doesn't just mean heal in I've got a broken finger and things are going wrong. He means heal and heal. There's so much trouble like that in the world today. People having despair over so many different things. And I know with COVID and the lockdowns and the things we've been going through, I've heard so much about statistics with suicide rates and depression going up. Folks, we have the answer to that if we're willing to share it, if we're willing to be those image bearers of something better than what we are. Think about the idea that as Christ came into a town, folks would flock from their homes to follow him. He gets on a boat to try to ride across a lake to get some peace and quiet. And as he arrives at the other shore, either that whole group comes around and meets him, or another whole group is there to greet him. And instead of turning back into the sea and going somewhere else, he comes off and he speaks to them, and he feeds them, and he heals them. Oh, that the world could see people like that, bearing that image today. Jeremiah is a book we've been reading on our Saturday morning discussions, and we're going to pick it up again tomorrow if you care to join us. In Jeremiah chapter 17, Jeremiah turns to God, and the chapter starts out this way, and it's just beautiful. Heal me, and I'll be healed. Rescue me, and I'll be rescued. For you are the one that I praise. What a beautiful thought. And I wonder, as Christians, do we identify and connect enough to that idea? Back to Exodus, because I let myself trail out. I'm the one who heals you, not the one who hurts you, not the one that destroys you, not the one that damages you. I am the one that heals you. Yours is but to be still and trust, and I'll take care of you. And finally, and I didn't pin this one, but it's right in that same area there in Exodus. He says, like a mother eagle carries her young on her wings, so too I carry my people on my wings. Now, I've never seen a mother eagle actually carry her offspring on her wings, but what a beautiful image of protection that is. What a concept of a God who does the work for us, who stands there with us. I think of Christ, of course, too. Come to me, all you who are weak and weary, and I will give you rest. Hook yourself and yoke to me in partnership. We'll do that piece maybe a little bit more specifically later. But I just want to point out to you that he calls people to him that way that are broken. Churches, I think, too often think of themselves as the pure or the high or the mighty or the great or the perfect or the this or the that or whatever. When we really need to be doing is considering ourselves the broken and the damaged, the weak and the weary, those desperately in need who have found a yoke with one so great that he lifts us up each and every day. The idea that we could represent a God who, as he comes into the town, everybody from every corner comes out to be a part of what he's doing. It does say in Exodus, I think that might be in 15 or it's somewhere right around there, that the disciples, his followers, after the atonement, were in the cities and they would go places, and when they were caring for others, people would just come flocking from the corners and the alleys and the back streets out to be healed, to be touched, to be taken care of, to be loved, and to be valued. If we understand that God would be the ultimate emergency room, not just in our time of despair, but in our time of health when we need to be connected to that, to know that we're going to stay in the place that we need to, we would be presenting him so much better to the world around us. Unfortunately, it's all too often that we get to the point of saying or picturing or imaging, representing to people a God who's looking down, his long arm and long finger pointed accusingly at people for the things that they've done wrong, as opposed to the one with his arms open saying, come to me, all you who have need. It doesn't matter what your background is or who you are. It doesn't matter what you've done or where you've tripped. All that matters is that you recognize that there is a God and he is the one who heals you. There is a God and he is the one that rescues you. There is a God that will do the work and fighting for you. He will be with you. He will tie you to his yoke, but his burden is easy and the way is light. And it's not easy and light because there's nothing to do. It's easy and light because you're connected to the one with whom all things are possible. Friends, as we pray for one another, as we lift up the different problems that we have in our lives, it's my prayer and thought and hope and wish and challenge to all of you that you remember to bear the image of the one who says the pain stops right here. Calling people to us that are damaged is doing exactly what Christ did over and over again. Being attractive to people who have need is walking in the footsteps of Christ. I love you all. That's all we have for this week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.